Good morning, Mr. Allen here again. We're going to be looking at different hand tools that we're going to be using in the class. Some we'll use, some we won't, depending on what your grade level is in your project. But hopefully this will give you a little introduction to some of the different tools out there. There are some specialty tools that I have here that you may not use at all. So let's start with the basics. Let's just do a review first. What is the most important safety item that you should have? Answer is your safety glasses. Everybody should have a pair of safety glasses whenever you're working in the shop. It is a must. Protect your eyes. Other thing is hearing protection. Good set of hearing headphones is good. The ones that just plug in your ears, little foam protectors. Some breathing barriers. This is the one that I use in the shop most of the time. I also use this. Now, these are inexpensive, they're great to have. Everybody should have one of those. Now let's get on to some of the hand tools, all right? Screwdrivers. You have your cross tip screwdrivers. They come in many sizes, lengths. Depends on what you're going to be doing and what you're going to need to have. Everybody should have a good set of screwdrivers. Whether they're cross tip or flat tip, all right? Everybody should have a good set of screwdrivers. You never know when you're going to need one. Some of the other tools that we're going to use are chisels. Some projects are going to require you to use chisels. They come in different sizes. So having a good chisel, nice sharp chisel, it'll make life a lot easier when you're doing some small, intricate work. Different wrenches, crescent wrenches, adjustable wrenches, these are very handy. So you don't have to have a large set of sockets. So a lot of times, this is all you really need. Hammers, a rubber mallet for some things, dead blow hammers for others, when you're putting stuff together that you're gluing, or if it's a tight fit. There are ball peen hammers. Sometimes you may use these. Probably not as often in woodworking, but they are handy to have for some things. And then the good old standard claw hammers, different sizes, different weights. Depending on your age and your strength level and your skill level and how well you can handle it will depend on what hammer you use. There are pliers, different style pliers. Slip joint, slip joint channels. There are vice grips, we won't even be using those. Drill bits, well, there's different types. There's hole saws. This one here makes a 6-inch hole in a piece of wood. I use this for a lot of things. They come in different sizes, all kinds of different sizes. Depends on what you're going to be doing and what you really need. If you use a bracing bit, the big auger bit, you might need a bit like this. So depending on what you're boring a hole in, depends on what bit you're going to use. And then there's the standard twist drills. Most people have a small set of these. I've got a couple of large sets, even a small set. I never know when I'm going to need them. Other things that I use is a utility knife. I use this for cutting small pieces of wood, sometimes just to trim an edge. It comes in very handy. Rasps. A rasp is used for taking off a large amount of wood in a very short time. They come in different styles. These are just two that I have. Hand planes. A surfacing plane and a butt plane. Two of the planes. There are a multitude of planes out there. They come in all different sizes and shapes. They do different things. So you never know what you're going to need. It's nice to have a variety because sometimes you need that variety. You might only use it once or twice, but if you need it, you have it. Other things that I use are levels. I use levels for leveling, checking the level of stuff all the time. Small ones, larger ones. something else every shop should have. And if you don't have it, you really can't do a lot in woodworking, but you need a good tape measure. All right? For most of the project that you're going to be doing, a 6-foot tape measure is all you really need. Just a small one. I do a lot of big stuff. I do a lot of other work where I need longer tapes, 25, 30-foot tapes, sometimes even longer. So I have quite a few tape measures around my shop. Other things you're going to need is a good square. This is a framing square, but it can be used for a lot of things. There's a lot of different measurements on it. There's different stuff on the back to tell you how to do different things if you need to figure stuff out. So these are good to have. Combination square. It's a 12-inch ruler on it. You got your 90 and you got your 45s. So you can cut your angles for making picture frames and things like that. A speed square does a lot of the same stuff that the combination square does, but you can actually, when you master it, can use this to make a circle. But it does your 45s and your 90s. You can use it as a guide on wood. Run your skill saw across if you're running a skill saw, power saw. Use it for a guide. Specialty ruler that I use for checking degrees and angles on stuff, I use this here. Comes in very handy. It's something you probably won't be using at all during our classes because you really won't have a need for it. But I wanted to show you that. Now let's get into some of the saws. This is my saw, my hand saw. I use this quite a bit. Comes in very handy. Coping saw. This is a saw that some of you will probably get to use. They're handy for cutting boards, cutting circles, for rough cutting some things. Small hand saw. This is one that will be used in the classroom. Something that you kids at home should have. It's a nice handy little saw. You can pick these up at, I think I got this one at Walmart. They have a Ridgeback saw, box saw. This is used for cutting miter joints in a miter box. If I need to make a cut and when I want more of a rigid saw, I'll use this here because it's nice and sturdy, it won't flex. Now some of the other tools that you might use if you're doing something special, like if you're wanting to do rough cut wood outside, cutting tree branches or things like that, this here is called a machete. Do not use this unless you have your parents' permission and they're watching you use it because it can be very dangerous. But I use this for cutting limbs off of trees and that if I'm doing small projects. And I can show you in a little bit one of the projects that you guys, depending what grade you are, you'll be working on. This could be used to cut the branches so you can make that project. And then cut the wood down, the branches down to sizes that you need with your hand saw. Another tool that can be used is a hatchet. You can use this for cutting small pieces of wood, cutting branches. It comes in very handy. There are a lot of uses for this. Again, this is a tool that you will not use unless you have your parents' permission and they are with you when you're using it, because it can be very dangerous. There's a special way to use it, things you need to have in mind when you do it. Now let's take a look at, we'll start going into some power tools, but let's talk about sandpaper first. Sandpaper comes in all different grits, and that really confuses people. Depends on what sander I'm using, depends on the sandpaper or what I'm trying to sand. My roughest is a 40 grit, and then I have a 50 grit, and then I go on up to the 80 grits, the 120, the 220, and then it goes up from there. I've got 320, 500, 1,000, and 1,500 grit sandpaper. Depends on what kind of finish I want to get on my wood. So having a variation of sandpaper can be handy. For most of your projects, you're going to be using an 80, a 120, and a 220. That's all you really need. as you start to do a lot more woodworking, if you continue into it and learn more, you'll find where you want to use the other sandpapers, because you'll get a lot nicer finish and you'll be happy with your outcome of your product. Some of the other things you're going to be using is clamps. Clamps like this, in different sizes, bigger one, and then pressure clamps. These you can lock down real good. They hold the wood real tight while you're gluing it. Again, they come in different sizes. These are just 3 of the different clamps that I have. I have bigger clamps, I have some smaller clamps, and I use them quite frequently, especially when I'm gluing pieces together, or what we call laminating wood. 6th graders, you're going to get an idea how that works, because you're going to have to laminate the wood together for your project. 4th and 5th graders, you're going to need the smaller clamps to hold the wood together that's gluing for your projects. And I'll show you what those projects are when we get done here. Now let's take a look at some of the other tools. Some of the power tools. You will not be using too many of these. There's a couple of them that you'll get to use. The rest, just a little above your skill level right now. But maybe eventually when you go on further in woodworking, you'll get to use these. Let's start with the basic one, a drill. This is a battery operated drill. You'll get to use this, especially 6th graders, because your project, you're going to have to put some screws in it. So we'll be using the drill. The other thing that we'll have to do is sanding. This here is just a vibratory sander. You use this, you go in the direction of the wood, of the grain on the wood, okay? You don't go across the grain, you go with it. That'll give you a really nice finish. The other sander I have is my random orbital sander. Now this one I don't have to go with the grain because the pad spins in a circle. So it's going against the grain, with the grain, all the way across. It makes a really nice finish. Both of these sanders will collect the dust in the bag on the end, or I can hook it up to my shop vac and it sucks it up and I don't have it in the shop. With that bag and with my dust mask, I'm pretty well safe. I don't have to worry about dust in my lungs. One of the other tools that we have is, this is a belt sander. This takes off a lot of material really fast, and you got to really control it. You got to use both hands when you use it, because it will run away from you and you might lose your sander. It'll go running off and leave you standing there looking like, what happened? And believe me, when it grabs wood, it grabs hard. So one of the other tools, if I want to take down wood really fast, now we looked at the hand planers over there. This is a power hand planer. I can use this to cut down wood. If I need to cut down a lot or just smooth out an area, I can use this if I don't want to use my hand planes. Again, this collects the dirt, the shavings inside this bag, which helps. It keeps the shop clean. One of the other tools that we'll end up using in the 6th grade class, and I'll be doing the cutting there with this, but is the skill saw. And a skill saw, even though the name is called skill saw, it's actually just a circular saw. Skill is just a brand name. These can be very useful. They're also kind of heavy, especially for you kids, to be too heavy. And they can be very dangerous if you don't use them right. They have been known to kick back. And that's when the blade gets pinched in the wood and it kicks it back out backwards towards you. That blade is spinning pretty fast, it's pretty sharp. Accidents happen. So again, if you ever get a chance to use one of these, make sure you have your parent with you when you're doing it and they're watching you and helping you, because it's a very dangerous tool, but it does a really nice job of cutting wood, especially if you got to cut long boards. One of the other tools that I've used for cutting tree branches and that, this is called a reciprocating saw. These are very dangerous. The blades that come with these are very sharp and they cut through a lot of things. You will not be using one of these, but I wanted to show you what it was. Maybe some of you, your parents, might have one of these and they use it, and maybe you've seen them use it. Hopefully they've also taught you the safety aspects of this saw. When you're using it, you want to be able to hold it with both hands. It's a great tool to use. It comes in handy for a lot of things, but not for real fine woodworking. But if you're cutting branches and logs and timbers, this is really handy to use. Now, out of all the tools that I have, my most favorite tool is my router, because I can make all kinds of nice cuts with this. Decorative edges, signs. It's just so handy to have, and it does a beautiful job. This is just one set of router bits that I have that go with it, okay? I don't know how well you can see those, but they do a great job of making decorative edges on boards. I do a lot of stuff like that. You know, when I make a table, I'll put an edge on it, or a cabinet door, I'll put a decorative edge on it. I use that. Sometimes I use my hand router, or I use my table router, which is, you know, it's a big table, has a router built in the bottom, and I raise it up and I run the boards through it. It is just so nice to end up with a really nice edge. I think I have a board here that has an edge on it. Yep, here we go. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this on the camera, but that is an edge that I made yesterday at the school with some kids with the router. And that's the kind of edge that you can get. It's a very nice edge. Like I said, that's just one decorative edge. There are multiple edges that you can get. There are so many different router bits that to have them all, it'd take up a whole wall because there's just that many bits out there. But they do a beautiful job of doing nice edges. You can do dados or rabbits. These are items, cuts in wood, that you'll learn about eventually. But they are nice cuts to have, and you may use them a lot. You use them for making shelves. Actually, here is another type of edge that I've made. This is used to make a door. I cut that so they go together. I don't have the right pieces here. But this slides together with another piece like this, and I have a door frame for a cabinet door. So there's a lot of things you can do with wood, and there's a lot of things you can do with tools. Like I said, the router is a great tool because you can do a lot of things with it. Now let's look at your projects. All right, fourth graders, you're going to be making something that looks like this. It's not that hard. Most of the discs will probably already be cut for you, but we're going to have to sand them and glue them together. So you're going to be gluing and clamping, and it's going to take a few days to do this because you can't do it all at one time. We'll clamp a couple, and it'll have to sit for a day or so, and because of the way it goes, we may not get back to it right away. Depending on at home, you'll have a better chance of doing it a lot quicker. At school, they're going to have a little more time in between each gluing, and depending on how many clamps we have available. Fifth graders, your project's going to look something like this. Although your wooden discs might be the same size as what the fourth graders are, but we can get little twigs and cut them to go in between the gaps to make it look a little more like this. This is a fun project. It can be a picture frame, whatever you want it to be. We'll put hooks on the back so you can hang it. And it can be hung like this or like this. For the fourth graders, we'll just put one hook on it so you can hang it like this on a wall, and it can be a picture frame also. So they're going to be fun projects. We don't have a lot of time this year to really do a lot, but next year we'll have a little more time because we won't have to cover as much on safety. Because the fourth graders and fifth graders will have had the safety class this year, so we'll do a review of safety class and review of hand tools probably in the first day, and we can start projects right after that. So we'll look forward to doing that. Sixth graders, your project is going to be a little more intense. you're going to be making this table. Now, this table comes up like this and slides together. And it's being difficult for me right now. But it'll slide together like this. And there's your table. This table is very sturdy. This is a perfect 6th grade project. You're going to have to glue these top boards. They're going to have to be laminated together. So we'll be gluing them and clamping them, and then we'll be cutting them out. And then I'll probably use the router to put the edge on here for you. But you'll be doing all of this yourself. Nice project, a lot of fun. And the reason I picked this project, this particular table was made by my daughter when she was in 6th grade. So I thought this would be a perfect project for the 6th graders. And it's something that will last a long time. So until next week, I hope you had a good time. Like I said, a lot of these tools you may never use, but they're there. And if you have questions, send them to your teacher, and I will try and answer them the best that I can. Until then, have a good week.